So today is a return to form as we'll be ranking all the season finales of the hit TV series Peaky Blinders, which ended last year with season 6. This list for me changes quite consistently, but I feel like this is maybe a solid foundation as to how I'm usually feeling. First of all, I also have to say that every single season finale of Peaky Blinders is the best episode of each consecutive season, in my opinion. For example, there's 6 episodes a season, and the 6th episode, the final episode of every season, is the best of each season. This is really just ranking the best 6 Peaky Blinders episodes ever made. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Coming in at our 6th spot is Season 1, Episode 6. Now, the first season was one of the better seasons, and the initial start to everything, even being released 10 years ago. So, why is this at the bottom? Well, first of all, it probably has the least stakes, if I'm honest. Now, it opens up with Tommy planning to betray Billy Kimber, but this obviously gets found out through the help of Inspector Campbell, and Billy Kimber's gang actually comes to kill Tommy and his Peaky Blinders. There's a nice little conflict. Furthermore, before this, we understand that Grace has actually betrayed Tommy, and Tommy doesn't know, but he comes to realize it, and they share a great scene where Tommy says that he no longer loves her, and he leaves her. The battle between Billy Kimber and Tommy Shelby is also not too bad. Ada comes in and tries to disrupt all the conflict, which is great, but she actually gets no real satisfaction as Tommy is still shot by Billy Kimber and Danny Whizbang is actually shot dead. Billy Kimber is eventually killed, and the season wraps up with a nice funeral for Danny, and the boys getting drunk in the garrison, talking about how the next villains are only the Solomons and the Zabinis, which is a nice little hint for season 2. The final episode also has this great scene between Tommy and Campbell near the start in the Chinese brothel, where Tommy says he has his family and Campbell is nothing really, has nothing. Yeah, so the first season's episode 6 is quite good. Best episode of season 1 in my opinion. The first episode is also quite good of season 1, but yeah, season 1 episode 6 is the 6th spot for season finales. Coming up next in spot 5 is season 4 episode 6. Now this might be a bit controversial, as previously in my other video I also ranked season 4 as the worst season of Peaky Blinders, but I do think that this season finale is a bit better than season 1's, but still definitely not on the tier of the other 3. Season 4 in general isn't really my favourite season. The first episode is probably the best, but episode 6's episode does come close. Basically, we have Tommy finishing up his business with Luca Changretta. It's at the beginning it's made to look like Arthur is being killed, which is just a bit messy. It's not that great of a plot twist really, because there's no way they would have killed both brothers in one season anyway. So we have all that. The confrontation between Luca and Tommy is a bit whack, to be honest. I didn't overly enjoy it. Once again, this is all my personal opinion, but the confrontation was a bit poor, I felt, and it just didn't seem that appealing to look at. The lighting on the cinematography it just wasn't really that inviting to look at, as well as the actual how it played out was kind of a bit poor. Tommy literally just bought off Luca's men and then killed him in there, and Arthur returns, which is, you just knew it was going to happen. So that was a bit meh. Where I think season 4 episode 6 really picks up is the latter half. So after Luke is dead, and that little bit where Tommy is they have a party at his house where they're kind of retiring and he's having a break. Arthur tells him to have a break. That whole second half of the episode is phenomenal. It's really good. I really enjoy it. Tommy's going a bit through his trauma. He's trying to think what he has to do, what his life's come to, what his next moves are, etc. And it ends with him talking to Francis saying how there's no rest in this life for me, perhaps in the next. Then it shows him becoming a politician and actually winning an election, which leads on really nicely to season 5. But yeah, the first half of season 4 episode 6 is a bit mediocre in my opinion and a bit messy, whereas the second half I thoroughly enjoyed and was a great pleasure to watch. Now, what even could be more controversial is coming up in the 3rd spot, which is Peaky Blinders season 2 episode 6. Now, I know a lot of people actually rank this as their number 1 episode of the whole series, and it is definitely damn good. But, in my opinion, it's just not above the next 3 spots. So, more or less in season 2, I don't even know where to begin. The episode's that good. You start off with Alfie talking to Tommy and having a great scene where he pretends to have a grenade planted in his brewery. and Alfie getting a bit apprehensive and paranoid, and Tommy working into it really well. It's a phenomenal scene. Then we also have when they head to the races, which is fantastic again. They head to the races. Tommy has a ulterior motive to kill the army general, as well as fuck over Sabini and his men. It's just the whole... It's that episode as well. And the whole choreography of the scene is fantastic. We have the Peaky Blinders screwing over Zabini's gang, getting their bookies, stealing their bookies, etc. We have Tommy trying to kill the general, which he gets Lizzie to sort of manipulate the general into a private area. Tommy's gun backfires, misfires, doesn't shoot. Lizzie is nearly getting raped, and there's a fight between Tommy and the general, and then Lizzie shoots the general. There's phenomenal. Everything's paced so phenomenal. Then we have Tommy and Campbell's final chat, which is again phenomenal. Tommy tells Campbell that Grace loves him, etc., and it just really gets at Campbell. We have Campbell get killed by Polly. We have Tommy get captured after his confrontation with Sabini in the restaurant. Then we move on to what is arguably one of the best scenes out of the whole show, and definitely a top 3 scene for me, where Tommy is actually about to be killed in an open field, and he sees his life really flash before his eyes. It's a phenomenal scene. I can't do it justice with words. You'll have to watch it yourself. It is fantastic. And this ends on an even more fantastic scene where you see the Peaky Blinders and everyone's celebrating. It's actually my outro to every video, where the Peaky Blinders are all celebrating at Watery Lane, and Tommy goes back to his office and meets Michael and says that he wants to do real business with Michael, and he plans on getting married, which leads into season 3. But yeah, season 2, episode 6, phenomenal episode. Really, anything from this point upwards is phenomenal and a 10 out of 10 in my opinion. Next up after season 2, in spot 4, is actually season 6, episode 6, the final episode ever of Peaky Blinders. Now, this again is another fantastic episode, and it was a fantastic ending to the whole series. Everything from the fight between the IRA and Arthur and Isaiah, Uncle Charlie, that whole scene in the garrison, fantastic. The opening with Lizzie leaving Tommy, it was heart-wrenching. The scene with Arthur and Tommy in the office where they give each other a hug, and it's just, that is maybe one of my favorite scenes in the whole of Peaky Blinders, with Arthur and Tommy. Then we have the garrison scene where Billy is kind of getting found out by all the Peaky Blinders, as they already know. We have the scene in Arrow House where Duke and Isaiah kill Billy and Finn gets kicked out of the family. Fantastic scene, and I've got to just say one quickly, the cinematography in the whole of season 6 was fantastic. But especially that scene where Finn gets exiled, and all the scenes in Arrow House at night with Isaiah and all that, and Uncle Charlie, Curly, etc., Finn, Billy. That scene, the cinematography in that scene and the lighting atmosphere it creates is probably the best in the whole series for me. It is really good. Then we obviously move on to Tommy going to America or Canada, and he finds Michael. Michael plans to betray him. Michael ends up getting killed by Tommy, shot directly in the head. He has a talk with Alfie. Then they go to the family dinner. It's just a fantastic episode. Then it ends with Tommy redeeming himself completely. He believes he's going to die. He's not. He meets that Jewish doctor, gets payback on him more or less. And yeah, his mind is just cleared. He hears the bell toll, armistice, peace at last. He's moved on from his life, or he's reborn. And I can't talk about this episode without talking about that fantastic final shot with the house burning, or his caravan burning, and him riding away on the white horse as opposed to him riding on a black horse in season 1. It's phenomenal, and what a way to end the season. Best season ending to a TV series I've ever seen in my whole life. Nothing even comes close. Fantastic. Now, in my second spot, I guess some of you would have already guessed it, seeing my love for the season. It's actually, maybe surprising, season 5. Now, season 5, episode 6, initially was my number 1 spot, but this episode is phenomenal. From the initial talk with Winston Churchill, the garrison confrontation between Michael, something season 5 did really well was build paranoia and tension. This episode literally is filled with tension. From the talk with Winston Churchill and Tommy, you don't really understand the motives or what's happening, to the high-intensity meeting between Michael and Tommy in the garrison, to the fantastic and maybe the best sequence in the whole of Peaky Blinders, the assassination attempt on Mosley. That scene is phenomenal. It is absolutely phenomenal. And it's just really a merit to how good Peaky Blinders can get. The tension built from trying to find Mosley, getting the plan ready, the build up to the plan in the backstage, everything. You can just feel the tension in the air. You could literally cut it with a knife how thick it was. It's ridiculous how good that sequence of events is. Then, without the ending as well, when the plan fails, it was the first time ever that the Peaky Blinders have failed, so that's another merit. His meeting with Alfie in season 6, his meeting with Alfie again, where he finds out Alfie was actually alive, and he meets at Margate in his house. Phenomenal scene again, phenomenal cinematography. Season 5 and 6's cinematography are the best. But, incredible. That scene with Alfie is probably my favourite Alfie interaction with Tommy out of all of Peaky Blinders. And yeah, it just ends with Tommy failing and going to kill himself in the field. The whole episode is perfect and really paced well. Beautiful filmmaking, the tension, the atmosphere, the cinematography, the characters, the writing, everything's perfect in season 5, episode 6, and it is easily one of the best season finales that I've ever seen in my life. Now, on to maybe my favourite season finale ever, and ranked at the number 1 spot. A lot of you may be surprised, but I think it merits its cause. Season 3, episode 6. Now, season 3 for me ranked kind of in the middle for my favourite overall season. And I've got to admit, the season is very good, but there are some parts of the episodes where they're maybe a bit slow. Not slow, but maybe a bit convoluted and a bit almost cluttered. But all those loose ends and problems and questions which were caused in the first 5 episodes wrap up incredibly nicely into episode 6. And this seems to be a common thing with Peaky Blinders. There'll be a lot of loose threads or questions posed throughout the earlier seasons, or earlier episodes, and they all get wrapped up incredibly nicely in the final episode. And season 3 is no different. It starts with Tommy opening his charity, then his son getting stolen by Father Hughes, which is the best villain in Peaky Blinders in my opinion. Very close rival with Mosley, but I would say Mosley just gets it, but yeah, they're really one-on-one. But Tommy's son gets stolen by Father Hughes. Then it's this whole run-through of Tommy questioning his people, trying to find his son, extreme stress. It's the most we've ever seen Tommy stressed, if I was to be honest. Then we go to such great scenes such as him talking to Alfie about the jewels, and Alfie across the line speech, a phenomenal scene. Michael contemplating with having to kill Father Hughes and wanting to do it, and what it will really mean for him, having killed a man. Polly's final confrontations with Reuben and all that. Furthermore, we have Tommy doing whatever is necessary. At the start of the episode, there's a really cool coincidence, actually. John and Arthur tell Tommy that Johnny wants him to come and do the mining, or the tunneling to the Russians' jewel factory, or jewel safe underground. Basically, Tommy says, no, there's no way wild horses could get him in, is what they actually say. Then, when his son gets stolen and everything's pushed to the limit, we see Tommy actually risk it all and go tunneling himself. He rips his shirt off, he gets just down and does the dirty work, because he knows that he has to save his son. If he doesn't get the jewels by this certain time or the payment, his son is gone forever. Which is, you can just imagine yourself in that situation if you had a child. It's incredible. And Tommy does push it all to the limit and goes tunneling. Furthermore, we see Father Hughes get killed by Michael, which is a very intense scene. And really, I feel really happy for Michael actually for that, because he was molested by Father Hughes. It's almost alluded to that he was molested by Father Hughes, and for Michael to get that revenge kill is fantastic to watch. Then, how can you talk about this season without talking about that final scene, where Tommy basically has not a breakdown, but he says it how it is, and he says that the kings and royalty and politicians, they're all worse than the Shelbys and the Peaky Blinders, and that they will never accept Peaky Blinders into their lives, just because who they are. And I'm assuming that's working class and maybe criminal background, etc. But they will never accept the Peaky Blinders into their way of life. And Tommy, you can tell, is really hurt by this, as he just wants to advance in society and make something respectable. Yeah, it's especially with everything that went on this season with Grace dying, etc. He just wants to become legitimate, and he strives to become more legitimate every season. And this is really the culmination of that. He really wants to go legitimate, and he understands that that is the best way to progress their business. And then when Arthur goes to leave, it is revealed that Tommy's called the police because Section D was going to get rid of all of them, but Tommy made a deal with people that were more powerful than Section D. And thus it resulted in all of his family being arrested besides Tommy, which obviously never happens, they never die. But they all get arrested, and it leads to a great scene where Tommy's almost this sole emperor, and he's really alone by himself. As his whole family gets arrested and taken away in trucks, and Tommy stands in his doorframe by himself, quiet, not a sound in sight. And he just stands there thinking perhaps to himself, was it all worth it? Or contemplating if he had to do it. And he walks off screen, and that is the end of Season 3, Episode 6. But yeah, this season just has so many great moments. This season has some of my favourite moments out of the whole series, and they're all packed into one episode. Even his final meeting with Tatiana. Like, Season 3, Episode 6 is a masterclass episode. And even though Season 3 as a whole may have been a bit weaker compared to such as Season 2 and Season 5, their final episode alone is fantastic and ranks as my number one spot. Currently. Like I said, this all changes next week. Season 2 might be again my favourite. Or Season 5. Who knows? But as of now, that is my ranking. Season 3, Episode 6 is number 1. So, yeah. Let me know if you enjoyed that video. If you enjoyed my ranking, if you disagreed with it or not. I'm sure a lot of you disagreed. However, I was surprised to find a lot of you actually thought my ranking on seasons was quite accurate. A lot of you really didn't like Season 4 as much as I thought you guys did. Which is great for me because I wasn't really a big fan of it either. But to know that many other people didn't really like Season 4 and agreed with my ranking completely was fantastic. Because you really do see Season 4 triumphed as the best all the time. So, yeah. Really thankful for you guys watching this video. Let me know if you liked it. Let me know what you thought of the rankings. What would yours be more importantly? Please comment below. I love reading it and interacting with you guys. And yeah. If you did enjoy this video, leave a like, subscribe, and have a great day or night, wherever you are.